Hello everybody, welcome to Comfortel's Oxyoasis Oxygen Facial webinar. Today we're going to take you through a presentation about our oxygen facial system, which is called Oxyoasis. We're going to teach you a little bit about what the system is, how it works, and what kind of treatments you can perform with it. Also, we'll go through how to include those oxygen facials into other treatments that you may already be offering in your salon. Let's get started. So I just want to show you our machine. Our machine, first of all, is called Oxyoasis. So this is what the machine looks like. It's quite a small unit and it's a self-contained oxygen generator. So what that means is that it doesn't actually have an oxygen tank that's required to generate the oxygen. The machine actually uses the air surrounding you, so the environmental air, and it purifies and concentrates the oxygen out of that air and then delivers that oxygen through to the skin via the tubing and the spray system. So what you end up with being delivered through to the skin is actually 95% pure oxygen. So you can see in the image there in front of you the way that the tubing is quite long, so you can actually be sitting there with your client and the machine's just sitting on the floor next to you, and that concentrated oxygen is being delivered through that spray system via the little gun that you can see clipped onto the front of the machine there. So we'll show you through the machine in detail coming up shortly. That's me there, folks. So my name is Mishelle Pemba. I've been working with Comfortel for 14 years now. So I'm Comfortel's national trainer. And when you purchase equipment from us, then I actually will help you to implement that machinery and equipment into your salon. We can help you to provide treatment protocols so that you can know what to do with the machine and how to use it and how to get the best out of it, and also help you with any troubleshooting or technical support that you may need from your machines. So I'm going to be taking you through the training webinar today. So what we're going to show you is how to perform the oxygen facials. So oxygen facials are not new, they've actually been around for a little while, and they're a very, very popular treatment. So they're quite easy to perform, but you actually can get quite good revenue from your treatments. You can make quite good money from them, and they don't take a particularly long amount of time, so they're quite quick and easy to do, and they're very, very well known. There's quite a few celebrities who publicly endorse their own use of oxygen machines. Probably Madonna would be one of the most famous celebrities who publicly endorses her use of an oxygen facial machine. Apparently, supposedly, she has an oxygen facial system in all of her homes, in every one of her homes, and that's one of her favourite treatments that she has before she goes on TV or does a performance of any kind or anything like that. Some of the other celebrities that you can see listed on the screen as well have also publicly endorsed their use of oxygen facial treatments. So it's actually good to know that there's some big names out there promoting those treatments, and that helps, of course, to make your customers more interested in the treatments when they find out that those kinds of celebrities endorse these kinds of treatments. So let's talk about oxygen and the skin and why it is that we actually want to use oxygen in those treatments. So here's a little diagram of the skin. I'm sure you're all very familiar with this, but let's just have a little refresher over it. So basically, we know that every single cell in our body uses oxygen and needs oxygen to be able to function and do all of the things that it needs to do. So the deeper layers of the skin are actually supplied with oxygen from the blood. And in the diagram there in front of you, you can see those blood vessels coming up from the deeper layers of the skin. So through the fat layer or the subcutaneous layer, through the dermis, and then you can see those blood vessels looping up right to the underside of the epidermis. And that's how the majority of the skin actually does get its oxygen. It's supplied with oxygen through those blood networks. Now, what we do know is that there are no blood vessels in the actual epidermis itself. And we know that the outer layers of the skin, so the epidermis, is supplied with oxygen solely from the environment. So when you're not getting enough oxygen to the skin, then it impairs the cell's ability to reproduce and to do all of their metabolic processes and things like that. When you're younger, we have a very healthy supply of oxygen to the skin through that blood network, but also through the proper functioning of the epidermal cells themselves. And as we age, we know that all of those processes slow down a little bit. So not only does our capillary networking reduce a little bit, so therefore we've got less blood being supplied to the skin and therefore less oxygen along with that, but also the processes of the skin being able to use that environmental oxygen is also diminished a little bit as we get older. So the perfect antidote to that is for us to be able to supply the skin with some supplemental oxygen, so some oxygen from somewhere else. Where else can we get that oxygen? We can actually get that oxygen delivered to the skin through our facial treatment, so through the spray system. So when we are able to do that, we supplement the oxygen to the skin that the skin really needs, and it actually helps the skin to perform all of its vital processes and functions, including all of its reproductive and metabolic processes. But we also know that healing is benefited by being in an oxygenated environment. So when we've got good oxygen levels to the skin heals better. But also we know that oxygen helps to limit the amount of microbial growth that can happen in and on the skin. So in an oxygenated environment, things like bacteria, viruses and fungi and things like that, they simply cannot survive or multiply on the skin. So that's another good reason why we want to supply extra oxygen to the skin, to make sure that it remains as healthy as possible and to limit that kind of bacterial activity that can happen otherwise. Now on the screen there, it's actually telling you some really important information with some very big words. So let's have a quick look through that. So in the notes there, it actually says cellular processes in the skin such as angiogenesis, epithelialization and fibroplasia. What are all of those? Let's look at angiogenesis. First of all. So angiogenesis is basically the formation of new blood supply to the skin. So when your skin goes through its process of angiogenesis, it's actually making new blood vessels for itself. So of course that's vital for the skin to be able to remain healthy, but also to be able to heal. So we need the skin to be able to produce those new blood vessels. So that's the process of angiogenesis. Epithelialization is the skin's ability to rebuild its epithelial layer or its surface layer, if you like. So when we might do treatments like, for example, peels or microdermabrasion or even just exfoliating the skin needs to be able to regrow that new protective layer, and that process is called epithelialization. When we talk about fibroplasia, fibroplasia is basically the formation of new proteins and fibers in the skin. So particularly where there's an injury or a trauma to the skin needs to produce new collagen, new elastin, new hyaluronic acid, all of those substances in the skin that are vital for the skin integrity. The process of rebuilding those fibers and proteins is called fibroplasia. So basically skin healing. And all of those processes actually do better in an oxygenated environment. So we definitely need oxygen to help support all of those processes in the skin. Now, just to let you know also, there's a little footnote down the bottom there that you can see. That information actually came from a medical journal. So that's scientifically proven, that information about the skin using that environmental oxygen for those purposes. So that's quite interesting to note that that's actually come from a medical journal. Now, as we mentioned earlier, when you are young and your skin's healthy and full of blood vessels, it's actually able to do all of those processes quite well by itself. But with aging and with things like pollution, especially, as well as all the extra things that we do to ourselves, like maybe smoking, like maybe having a poor diet, spending too much time in the sun, all of that free radical activity that damages our skin and impairs our cellular processes, all of those things can actually be healed and improved by using oxygen in the skin. So as we were mentioning earlier, just improving all of those functions in the skin is definitely something that oxygen can help us with. So where we want to provide the skin with some supplemental oxygen, as I mentioned, the spray system and the 95% pure oxygen that is delivered through the oxyoasis system is a perfect way for us to supplement the skin with that oxygen that it needs. So now let's have a look at what an oxygen facial actually is. So an oxygen facial is where you use the spray system, which you can see on the screen there. It's literally like a little spray gun with a cup attached to it. So you will put a liquid skincare serum into that cup and pop the lid on that, and you use that serum in combination with that 95% pure oxygen, and you spray the serum and the oxygen through the system onto the skin, and that's delivered to the skin under pressure, so it actually forces that oxygen and serum into the skin, and that gives us beautiful rehydrating, it gives us refreshing, it gives us revitalization, and it's cooling and soothing. It's a beautiful treatment, and it helps to plump all of those little fine lines and textural irregularities in the skin as well. So particularly things like the little crow's feet and the fine lines around the eyes, around the mouth, and all of those areas, it plumps and smooths the skin. So it's a perfect treatment to do before maybe you might have a night out or an important function to go to, but it also works really well alongside a lot of other treatments that you might already be offering in your salon. So you can actually do this as a standalone service, in which case it takes about half an hour to perform. You can include it into any other facial that you're already offering in your treatment menu, as well as adding on extra services like, for example, an eye treatment, or you might add this on to a microdermabrasion or other treatments of that nature. So a little bit later on in our presentation, we will give you some ideas about what other treatments it works well with and how else you can use it and incorporate it into your treatment menu. So we'll have a little bit of a look at that a little bit further along in our presentation today. Now, on the screen in front of you there, you can see the benefits of oxygen facials. So as I mentioned, oxygenating the skin, so improving the amount of oxygen in the skin, which is vital for all of those basic cellular functions. It refreshes and it revitalizes the skin, it brightens, it hydrates, it plumps the skin texture, as I mentioned, all of those little crinkly lines, particularly around the eye area. It really, really helps to plump and brighten that area. So it's beautiful for dark circles and lines around the eyes. It also helps to stimulate healing. It's cooling and soothing, antibacterial, as we mentioned earlier, and that makes it ideal for acne treatment. So if you've got clients who've got problem skins, or you're doing a lot of deep cleanse or acne treatments, the oxygen facial works really, really well with that as well. And as we were mentioning, just that oxygen basically improving all of our cellular functions and improving everything about the skin, just brightening and plumping and hydrating and all of those good things that we want going along with any of our facial treatments. There's a little before and after picture for you there, so you can see particularly around the eye area. Have a look in the before photo, those little crinkly fine lines underneath the eye, and then compare that in the after photo, where you can see that those lines are really smooth and the skin's much more hydrated, and the skin just looks much more healthy and dewy and fresh. But you can definitely see that improvement in those fine lines. So that's a beautiful treatment result. Who wouldn't want to have that as their result? Now, this is actually something that a lot of people ask me about with oxygen facials. So I thought we'll include it in the presentation today, just because I do get asked about this a lot. So I want everybody to have a really good understanding of this issue. So sometimes people say to me, oh, but you know, oxygen's bad for the skin, it oxidizes things, and isn't oxygen a free radical? So, you know, do we really want to be using oxygen on the skin knowing that it can damage the skin and be a free radical? And so what I want to do is just explain to you about oxygen. So oxygen on its own should have 8 electrons in total. So in the diagram there, where it says normal oxygen, you can see one little oxygen molecule there, and those little red dots that say E in the middle of them, those are the electrons. So what we're looking at there is the atomic structure of oxygen, so what the atom actually looks like. And you may remember that those electrons are kind of in a ring or a like a field on the outside of that electron. So where oxygen is complete and it is not a free radical, that is what the structure actually looks like. Now, the problem that happens with oxygen is that oxygen is unfortunately acted upon by other compounds that are free radicals. So a free radical is basically a damaged or an unstable atom of any kind. And what happens when there's a free radical, those atoms are lacking an electron in their outer shell. And so what they want to do, they want to go around and they want to interact with other molecules and they want to steal electrons. And unfortunately, oxygen is one of the first things that will give up its electron. So in the little image on the right there where it says oxygen free radical, you can see that one of those pairs of those red electrons, they have actually been taken. One of them has been taken. And so what that does is it leaves oxygen with only 7 electrons. And so it's actually got one unpaired electron sitting there in that outer ring or that shell. And that is when oxygen becomes a free radical. And when it becomes a free radical, it then is unstable and it wants to then go around to other molecules that may be in the skin, and it wants to do the same thing. It wants to steal an electron from them. And when that process happens, then that other molecule becomes unstable as well. So that's how oxygen, or any molecule for that matter, can become unstable and can become a free radical. And we know that that causes damage to the skin. So what I want to do is just make sure that everybody understands how that process works and why it can become a free radical. And then I want you to actually understand that when oxygen has not been interfered with, it doesn't actually have that damaging capability. It is not a free radical when it is stable, when it has those 8 electrons in its outer field, as in the diagram on the left side there. So what we want to do is use stable oxygen so that it doesn't have those damaging free radical activities. And when the machine actually makes its oxygen, then we get pure stable oxygen that does not have that free radical activity. So this oxygen is not damaging for the skin. It's actually good for the skin and it's healthy for the skin. And in actual fact, it can help to repair free radical activity because we want to use it with antioxidants as well. So in your skincare serum, we always recommend that you should be using a serum that's got some antioxidant ingredients in there, because antioxidants actually help to donate spare electrons to those damaged particles. So any free radical that you have, whether it's an oxygen free radical or another free radical, as we mentioned, those little molecules are missing their electrons. And so antioxidants have got spare electrons. They've got electrons to share. And so what they do is they will donate an electron. As you can see in the little diagram on the screen there, the antioxidant has got a spare one. It will donate an electron to the free radical. And when that free radical has an electron donated to it, it's then happy and it stops being unstable and it stops being damaged, and it stops damaging other things as well. So antioxidants are definitely the antidote to free radicals. So we want to make sure that we're using some skincare serums that have got those antioxidant ingredients in them as well. Let's have a look at what we might look for. So in your serum or your ampule, you will look for some beneficial ingredients for that particular skin. So say you've got an oily skin or you've got a very dry skin or whatever, you'll look for some ingredients in your ampule or your serum that will benefit that skin condition, but also looking for some general antioxidants. And you can see a whole bunch of those listed on the screen for you there. Some of them I'm sure that you already know about the benefits that they have for the skin, like vitamin C, for example. Vitamin C and vitamin E are 2 of the most commonly used antioxidants in our skincare products. So you've probably got serums and things like that in your salon already that have got vitamin C and vitamin E. Vitamin A also, or retinol, is a powerful antioxidant, so beneficial for lots of skins, as well as all the other ones listed there. So resveratrol is a compound that is found in grapes, particularly the skins of grapes. That's also what's in red wine that makes it so healthy for you. when red wine is made, the colour of the wine actually comes from the wine being soaked in the skins of the grapes. And so all of those beneficial compounds, including the resveratrol and the polyphenols and things like that, actually soak out of the skin of the grapes and into the wine. So it gives us those beneficial qualities. So same in our skincare products, we can find the resveratrol and the polyphenols and things like that. They're just different names for those compounds that are antioxidants. Polyphenols also found in green tea. Flavonoids found in black and green tea, as well as lots of other fruits and vegetables. Coenzyme Q10, which I'm sure probably lots of you have heard of as well. It's also called ubiquinone. That's a powerful antioxidant too. And niacinamide, which is a form of vitamin B3, is also well known in our skincare products for having powerful antioxidant benefits. So those are some of the ingredients that you might want to look for in your skincare products, so your serum or your ampule that you're going to use with the oxygen system, as well as any other beneficial ingredients for the particular skin type that you may well be treating. So there's a good close look at our machine again. So you can see the little machine there and the tubing and the little spray gun system associated with it. And as I mentioned to you earlier, when that machine works, it draws air from around you and then concentrates it down to 95% pure oxygen. And that 95% pure oxygen is then delivered to the skin via the tubing and the spray system, as you can see in the picture there. So it's completely self-contained. You do not need an oxygen tank to go with it. It actually makes its own oxygen for you. And the way that it works is by concentrating and straining out all of the other gases out of the air around us. So the air that we breathe, so the environmental air or the ambient air as we call it, it's actually only about 20% oxygen. So the system actually draws in the air from around you and squeezes out all of the other gases that are also in that air in order to give us that 95% pure oxygen that's then delivered through the spray system. As I mentioned to you earlier, you can see the spray cup there in that image on the screen. So you will put your skincare serum or your ampule into that spray cup and close the lid down, and then you use the trigger on the system to control whether you're delivering just the serum or just the oxygen, or oxygen and serum, whatever you're doing. As I'll explain to you in a minute how the treatment actually works, you use the trigger to pull back and then deliver those ingredients through to the skin. So let's have a look at starting the treatment now. First of all, client preparation. We need to prepare the client by cleansing the skin and doing an exfoliation treatment as well. So any cleanser from any range that you already use in your serum, in your skincare treatments is fine. So give the eye and the lip area a really good cleanse to start with, particularly any eye makeup, because we really want to work around the eye area to plump those fine lines. So make sure that you don't forget that. And then a good cleanse, and then an exfoliation with a product that's appropriate for the client's skin. It's really important to exfoliate before we do the oxygen treatment, so that then we can make sure that that thickened corneum layer that we might have has been reduced and smoothed, and so that way we're spraying the skincare serum and the oxygen onto that perfectly clean and really well prepared skin. So it's important to do that first. Now let's have a look at performing the actual oxygen treatment. So I'll talk you through that while you watch the video in a second. Here's a little image of some products there. Now, depending on what skincare range you use in your salon, you can use lots of different types of product. There's lots of different brands that might have something that's appropriate, but the most important thing is that you must use a serum that is very, very watery, literally like water in texture. Please don't use anything that is thick or a gel type of a serum, because that could actually clog up the spray gun system. The tubes inside the spray gun system are very, very small and fine, and the nozzle of the spray gun system can get blocked if you use anything that is too thick or anything that's got an oily or a sticky kind of a residue. So have a look at your product and make sure that it literally has a watery kind of texture, very, very thin, and nothing sticky or oily in the ingredients list. Now, a little mention there of some ingredients that you might find helpful as well. Hyaluronic acid and collagen, obviously beneficial for their hydrating powers. So part of the aim of the treatment is to really plump and hydrate the skin. So those ingredients will go really nicely with the treatment if you can find them in your serums or your ampules. Antioxidants, as we mentioned, really important so that they can help to repair that free radical damage that may be occurring in the skin, and then other ingredients that may be beneficial for particular skin concerns, for example, acne or very dry skin or sun damaged or pigmented skin or something like that. So any other serums that you use in your own range, any cleansers, any other masks, all of those products from any of your treatment ranges can be used alongside of the spray system with your cleansing and your mask treatment and things like that. Let's have a look at filling the spray gun system. So you will take the cap off the spray gun, pop your serum into the cup, and you can see that watery texture that it needs to have. And then once you've put your serum in, put the cap back on so that that serum is sealed into the spray gun system. And 2 or 3 mils is all that you need. And a lot of your ampules already come in about a 2 mil size, so that's perfect. Now, first of all, you want to do a spray of just oxygen alone. So no serum at this point in time, even though the serum's in your cup. If you pull the trigger halfway back on the system, you will get oxygen only. And you need to do this working very, very closely to the skin, so about 1 millimeter off the skin. So you can see me there working very, very closely to the skin. And as I said, just pulling the trigger halfway back, that will give you oxygen only at this point in time. So you're literally going to spray all areas of the skin, just working in a small section at a time, including working around the eye area, as you can see now. And you are spraying that oxygen only very, very close to the skin. Obviously, when you're spraying around the eye area, get your client to make sure that their eyes are closed. You don't want to spray the oxygen into their actual eye. So just working very, very closely on all those areas. You can see how closely I'm working there. And it's going to take you about 5 to 8 minutes to spray every area of the face in this manner. So as I said, about 5 to 8 minutes of doing this. That's the first step of your treatment, using the oxygen only. So you can see me just spraying there, all of those little fine lines like the nasolabial fold as well, the little fine lines around the lip, those crinkly sort of crepey textured lines in the skin. Concentrate on any areas of concern. So find out from your customer which areas they're particularly concerned about and spend a little bit of time on those areas. So there's no particular routine, just cover all of the skin, make sure that you've covered all the areas nice and closely, and that's the first step of your treatment. Now, we're going to start with the serum. So you can see me holding my hand quite a lot further back now, so about 10 centimeters away, and when you pull your finger all the way back on the trigger, you will then get the spray coming through. So the serum that's in the cup will spray onto the skin, and you can actually see that in the video. You can see that serum spraying out and onto the skin. Now, it is important that you hold your hand a little bit further away while you do this. If you were to stay in that position that we were before, very close to the skin, you're going to find that the serum is going to make a really wet mess on the skin, and then the skin will actually start to drip with the serum, which feels quite uncomfortable because it will then run down the client's face. So you can see me holding my hand about 10 centimeters away in the video there. And then once you've sprayed all over the skin, you'll have that nice mist of serum all over the skin. You're now going to go to working very, very closely again, holding the trigger only halfway back, and that gives you that spray of concentrated oxygen, and again working very, very close to seal that serum in. Okay, so basically your routine is spray very close with oxygen only, pull your hand back, spray with your liquid or your serum about 10 centimeters away, and you do that by pulling your finger all the way back on the trigger, and then you come back up close again using the oxygen only, so pulling the trigger only halfway back and working very, very closely about 1 millimeter away off the skin to seal that skincare serum in. And you basically alternate doing that until you've used all of your serum and covered all of the areas of the skin in that manner. Now, once you have finished doing that, You can add your moisturiser and your sun protection to finish off your treatment. So you can finish off with any moisturiser from your regular treatment range. And of course, we always recommend some sunscreen afterwards so that we are protecting the skin before our client leaves the salon. So that's basically the standalone treatment that we've just shown you in the video there. And as I mentioned, that would actually take about half an hour to do that. So it's actually quite a quick treatment. You can, of course, include this treatment in any facial, or as I said, it's a companion treatment that works really well with lots of other things like microdermabrasion, for example. So let's have a little bit of a look at how you might include it in your treatment menu and alongside all of your other products. So that standalone service is basically what you just saw in the video there. So we're going to cleanse the skin, we're going to exfoliate the skin, we do our oxygen, as we said, up close, about 1 millimetre away for 5 to 8 minutes, covering all areas, including the whole face and the eye contour. Then we're going to follow that by spraying the serum, and that's using the gun with the trigger pulled all the way back and working about 10 centimetres away from the skin. And then coming back to spray the oxygen serum, the oxygen by itself, just again, using the trigger pulled halfway back to get the oxygen only. That will take you about 10 to 12 minutes to do that. So it's basically a half-hour treatment by the time you do all of that. Now, if you want to incorporate it with a facial, there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. So what you can see on the screen here, where you incorporate it with a treatment facial, it might take you about 60 minutes. And when you do it this way, your oxygen and serum is kind of replacing the mask. So what you'll notice in this protocol is that there's no mask included, because the spraying of the serum and then sealing that in with the oxygen kind of takes place of the mask. So it's rehydrating and it's plumping and smoothing and all of those benefits. So it will take you about 60 minutes to do the treatment this way. So if you were going to do that, you'll basically do your cleanse and your skin analysis. You will exfoliate, as we mentioned. You may use a hot towel if you wanted to, or you can steam if you need to. If you needed to do any extractions, of course, you could do that at that point in time as well. If you wanted to massage, you can massage. Remove your massage cream with a hot towel, and then you can do your oxygen. So basically, as I said, your oxygen treatment becomes the mask in this particular treatment. So the way that you'll deliver the oxygen is exactly the same what you saw in the video just before. So 5 to 8 minutes of oxygen only, working very close. Then pull your hand back about 10 centimetres back, spray your serum onto the skin, and then come back to spray with your oxygen to seal that in. So exactly the same treatment protocol that you just saw before. And then you're going to finish off with your treatment creams. So that's another option. We'll talk about pricing at the end. We've got some pricing information after we've gone through all of the different possibilities with your treatment protocol. Now, with the Deluxe Facial, this one might take you about 75 minutes, so that's an hour and a quarter. And the difference here is that we've actually included a mask with this protocol as well. So you can do that as well if you want to. So here, it's basically the same routine as what we started off with before. So you're going to do your cleanse and your skin analysis. You're going to do your exfoliation. You can do steaming and hot towels if you want to. If you need to do extracting, of course, you can do that as well. You can massage. Then you can apply a mask product of any kind. So you can use a cream mask or a gel. You could use a collagen fleece mask if you wanted to. If you had an oily skin, you could use a clay mask, or anything that is appropriate for the client's skin you could use. And then after the mask, you take that off with the hot towel, and then you'll go ahead with your oxygen and serum spray. Exactly the same protocol as before. So oxygen first. Then pull your hand back and add your serum by pulling the trigger all the way back, and then coming forwards again very close to the skin and working with your oxygen only to seal that serum in. And then after you've done all of that, you're going to finish off with your moisturiser and your treatment creams and so on. So this is basically the same kind of treatment, just using a mask as well. Now, if you wanted to, you could actually do your oxygen and serum, and then you could put your mask on afterwards. If you had something like, for example, a collagen fleece mask or a cream mask, it works really well to do that, because then basically that mask is sealing in all of your serum and your oxygen into the skin. So you can do the mask before or you can do your mask after. It doesn't really matter, and it might depend on what kind of a mask you had. So if you were going to use a clay mask or something like that, you would definitely do that before you did your oxygen and serum. So you can kind of mix and match depending on what kind of a product you're using, or what you're wanting to achieve for the skin. But very often we do the oxygen last, because we get that beautiful plumping and that smoothing of those lines and things around the eyes. So often we do it last, but you're not wrong if you do it in a different routine than that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the oxygen works really, really well with an acne treatment. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that we know that oxygen has really powerful antibacterial benefits. So think about using things like your high frequency, for example, or using ozone on the steamer. We know that ozone is like triple concentrated oxygen. It's actually 3 molecules of oxygen joined together. And that oxygen is a really powerful antibacterial agent. So really, really good for skins where there may be some infection or some blemishes or something like that. So definitely the oxygen facial works really, really well with a deep cleanse or a problem skin facial. So with the protocol that we've got there, it's a little bit different to what we've been looking at with the other facials. So definitely you want to do your cleanse and exfoliation the same. You probably want to do some steaming. You might want to add ozone to the steam this time. You probably want to do some extracting. If you're going to use a mask, you'd probably want to use an absorbent clay mask, or maybe an antibacterial mask of some kind, or an enzyme mask. Any of those kinds of masks work really well for problem skin. After you've put your mask on, you'll take it off with a hot towel, and then you're going to go ahead and do your oxygen the same way that we've been doing it before. So spray the oxygen first, then spray your serum, and then come back and seal that in with your oxygen again. By the time you've done that, and then you add your treatment creams at the end, you're looking at about a 60-minute treatment for that one. So that's for your acne and problem skins. Now, if you want to incorporate your oxygen facial with a microdermabrasion, it works really well. You do your microdermabrasion first, and then you do your oxygen treatment afterwards. So if you're going to do a diamond microdermabrasion, I often like to use a hot towel after that. I don't like to steam the skin after the diamond microderm, because we don't want too much heat on the skin. But I do want to use the hot towel, because after the diamond microderm, you'll tend to have a lot of that skin debris. It kind of looks a little bit dusty on the skin. So you want to get all of that debris off the skin, and a hot towel's a really nice way to do that. If you need to do any extracting, of course, you can do that after the hot towel as well. And then you can continue on to do your oxygen treatment the same way that we've been doing it beforehand. So oxygen first, then spray your serum, and then come back and seal the serum in with your oxygen at the end, and then finish off with your treatment creams at the end. So you're probably looking at about a 50-minute treatment for that. And that works really nicely after the microdermabrasion. Sometimes after the microdermabrasion, your client, they might be a little bit red, or they might feel like their skin's a little bit sensitive. And the oxygen is really cooling and really soothing, and it just kind of helps to smooth and rehydrate the skin afterwards. So we don't tend to have as much sensitivity and that barrier function disturbance that we can get after a microdermabrasion. That's soothed and improved a lot by doing the oxygen and the skincare infusion with the serum afterwards as well. Now, an eye treatment is a really nice add-on. So this might be something that you want to add on to any facial that the client might be already having. You can give them the option of having an eye treatment add-on. And this works really, really nicely around the eye area. Those little fine lines and the dark circles particularly are really improved with the oxygen infusion. So you will perform your facial, whatever kind of facial you're doing, and then when you've put your client's mask on, generally speaking, you will leave the eye contour free of the mask, and then you'll pop a little bit of serum. You'll only need like 1 ml of serum. You won't use very much serum at all, so just a really tiny amount in the cup. And you will basically work concentrating around the eye area. So you will do the lower eye contour, you will do the crow's feet area at the sides of the eye, and then you will do the upper lid under the brow. And so you'll spray the oxygen first, and then you will spray your serum, but just very, very lightly. We don't want too much serum around the eye, and make sure that your client's got their eyes closed all of the time. And then you can come back and just spray that oxygen again to seal the serum in. So the same protocol, but you're just focusing around the eye area. And then what works really, really nicely are some of those little mask pads that you can get for the eye area. So I'm sure you've all seen them. They're like a little, like a C-shaped mask or a little teardrop shaped mask, and they're like a tissue mask or a gel mask. And they've usually just got some smoothing and hydrating ingredients like your collagen and your hyaluronic acid and things like that. So you can pop those eye mask pads onto the eye contour, leave them on for another 5 or 10 minutes, and basically it takes you only another 10 minutes on top of your facial, maybe even 5 minutes on top of your facial, but you can add an extra $20, $25, $30 or something like that to the treatment. So it's a really nice add-on to do the eye treatment with the oxygen. Now, pricing. People always ask me about treatment pricing. Now, what you want to think about with your pricing, you want to think about what is it that you're doing with your oxygen treatment. If you're doing it as a standalone treatment, you're only going to cleanse, you're going to exfoliate, you're going to use about maybe 2 to 3 mils of serum, and then your machine. So that will take you about half an hour. You might be looking at charging anywhere from $75 to about $90. That's kind of the going rate for that treatment just by itself. Now, if you want to include other steps of the facial, you want to do massage, you want to do mask, you want to do maybe an eye treatment or something like that, you're probably looking at anywhere from $120 to $150 for that treatment. So what you want to think about with that pricing, you want to think about the duration of the treatment. So how long is it going to take you to provide that service for your client? So you want to take into account your operator costs. So if you're paying your staff, you've got to think about what are you paying them per hour. So if you're doing a half-hour service, then obviously you take half of that into consideration. If you're going to do an hour-long treatment, then of course you're looking at an hour of your staff time. So you need to take that into consideration with your pricing. You need to consider the cost of your product as well, and that's something that can actually vary quite considerably depending on what kind of product range you're using in your salon. So what kind of cleanser, what kind of exfoliant, if you're doing a mask with your treatment, if you've got a mask that you've got, you know, a large tube and you're just squeezing out, you know, 2 or 3 mils of that, the cost of that tends to be a little bit lower than, you know, comparatively if you're using something like a collagen fleece mask. They tend to be a little bit more expensive. So you want to think about what other products you're including with that, and particularly things like your mask that can vary quite a lot. You also want to include a little bit of money to contribute towards your rent, the costs of your electricity, your machinery payments, all of those kinds of things as well. And what we often say is just think about where your salon is as well. If your salon's in the shopping centre, then obviously your rent's going to be a little bit higher compared to if you've got a home salon. So think about that in terms of creating your treatment cost as well, because that all kind of comes into consideration. Also, you might want to think about how much competition there is for you in your particular area. Now, with the oxygen facials, as I said, they're not a new treatment. They have been around for a little while, but there's not that much competition for them. So there's maybe lots and lots of salons that are doing things like microdermabrasions and things like that. But the oxygen facials, there doesn't seem to be that many salons around doing them. So it could actually be a point of difference for you in your salon. And if there's no other salons in your area offering it, then it means that you can perhaps charge a little bit more for that. It's more of a premium service. So those are some of the things that you might want to take into consideration when you're thinking about the cost of your treatments. Now, cleaning and maintenance, let's talk about that. It won't take us very long to talk about that because it's quite a low maintenance machine, which is really good. It's nice and easy to clean. So your cleaning schedule is as follows. After you've finished your treatment, your spray cup, you should take the lid off and wipe out any serum that might be left in there with a tissue. Hopefully there's not too much serum left in there because you should have actually used all of that on your client's skin. But just open up the cup and wipe it out with a tissue. Add about 1 ml of isopropyl alcohol. So pop that into the cup. Now you can leave the lid off to start with. And then if you cover the end of the spray gun system, so the nozzle, if you cover that with your finger and then pull back on the trigger, what you'll see the alcohol that's in the cup, it kind of does a backwash and it will bubble up and you'll see it kind of bubbling, and that just, it's like spraying backwards through the system to make sure that if there was any little sticky bits of serum or any residue or anything like that, it actually helps to dissolve that and clean it out. Then put the cup onto the system and spray the alcohol through. So what I like to do, and I'll show you this in a minute in the video, I like to use a tissue, hold a tissue in front of the spray gun and literally just spray that alcohol through so that it blows through and goes onto the tissue. And then I actually use that tissue with the alcohol on it to wipe over the nozzle and the spray gun system to make sure that it's really clean. There is definitely a chance where you will contact the client's skin with the nozzle, so we definitely want to make sure that we clean that as well so that it's clean for the next client. Once you've done all of that, you can again take the lid off the spray cup, wipe it out with a tissue in case if there's any alcohol left in there. Again, try not to leave anything in there. Use all of the alcohol and spray it all through, but just in case, give it a little bit of a wipe out. Pop the lid back on and then you can put the handpiece away to store it until the next time that you need it. So it's actually quite nice and simple to clean. So I've just got a little video there to show you how easy it is to clean the spray gun. So there's some isopropyl alcohol there. Take the cap off the spray gun system, pop your alcohol in there, and you only need a very small amount, literally 1 or 2 mils at the absolute most. Don't forget to put the lid back on your alcohol as well. And then when you pull the trigger all the way back, you can see that little bit of alcohol spraying through. And I like to spray that onto a tissue, as I said, and then use that tissue that's saturated with the alcohol to give the system a really good wipe. So the isopropyl is a really good disinfecting agent, but it's also a cleaning agent, and it will dissolve any little bits of serum that might be left behind in the spray gun system. It's really important to blow all of that out of the system so that it doesn't get clogged. So if you don't clean your system in the manner that we've just shown you there is a chance that your spray gun can get clogged over time. So definitely make sure that you do that. Give it a really good clean. All right, so there is our little spray system again. So just to recap over those main points about the system and how it works, you get that 95% pure oxygen delivered through the spray system. It's a self-contained oxygen generator, so you don't need an oxygen tank. It actually makes the oxygen for you itself using the environmental air. It's extremely easy to use. The treatment protocols, as you saw, there's lots and lots of different options, lots of things you can do with it, lots of different ways that you can use the treatments. Very, very low maintenance. Other than your product, there's no consumable because it just uses the environmental air. So it's actually a really nice, easy and cheap system to run. Very, very low maintenance. It's lightweight and it's extremely portable. You can see that it's on little rollers there, so it's very easy for you to roll it through from one room to another depending on where you want to use it in your salon. And if you needed to, like if you need to go up or down steps or anything like that, you can see that it's got a little handle on the top and it's easy to be lifted up. You'd be able to lift it up yourself, no problem. There's no hassle with that. I've done it many, many times. Very, very movable from one room to another. Now, in terms of the size of the machine, if you had it on the ground, it kind of comes up to maybe around your knee area or maybe just over the knee area. So it's really quite nice and small and compact. So that is the machine there. Now, lots of people ask about the price of the machine as well. So it's just under $2,000. It's $1,995. That's Australian dollars. So if you're watching from New Zealand or from Singapore or somewhere else, then you'll maybe find a bit of a difference in price there. But if you're looking in Australian dollars, then that's what you're looking at. Now, in terms of the consumable, as I said, only your product. There's nothing else that you have to buy to use the system. Now, there's a couple of little filters in the picture there on the right-hand side. You can actually see like a little grey panel down the side. There's a little filter in there. You don't have to replace that filter, but what you do need to do from time to time is just remove that from the machine, wash it, and then pop it back into the machine. So, as I say, there's no ongoing consumables other than the product that you're going to use to perform your treatments. Now, if you're interested, you're welcome to attend to any of our Comfortel showrooms. You can see all of the addresses there on the screen in front of you. So depending on where you are, anywhere Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, Western Australia, South Australia, New Zealand and Singapore, we've got showrooms in all of those locations. Please do feel free to get in touch with any of those showrooms and talk to our managers there. The phone numbers are there for you as well, so you're welcome to ring at any point in time. Most of our showrooms are up and running most days. However, you might want to just call first and make sure that the interstate ones are staffed at the moment. Sometimes if our manager is out and about in our interstate offices, there may only be one person there. So it's always worth the call just to make sure that somebody will be there to answer your queries and things if you're hoping to attend. I'm here in our Melbourne office, which is in Clayton South. So there's always somebody here from Monday to Friday. But certainly feel free to give us a call or pop into any of our showrooms and see the machine and maybe get a little bit of a demonstration and some extra information if you feel like you would like to have that.